Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pole Obsession with the beautiful Elizabeth Domizet and me, Felix Kane. Today, we have with us our extremely special guest, the wonderful Robyn from Sydney Pole. Welcome, Robyn.
How are you?
Very well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Good. Excited to be on this podcast.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. We've got so many questions that we'd love to ask you and just pick your genius brain about. So thanks for taking the time to be with us.
I think we kind of want to start with maybe who were you before Sydney Pole? Because we all know Sydney Pole, we all know this huge, beautiful studios that you have everywhere, but we don't know anything about the woman behind it that created it. So tell us a little bit about your life before Sydney Pole.
Life before pole, did that even exist?
I know.
I started Sydney Pole nearly 12 years ago. So our 12th birthday is coming up in March. And before that, I started pole myself as a student at Misfit in Artarmon with Sarah and John. So I've always been super active. I did gymnastics for about 8 years, constantly just never sitting still, upside down. And I remember I saw a local ad in the paper, like an actual paper, and I saw an ad for pole dancing. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this is all about. Maybe I should try it. And I signed up without even thinking. And I started, and I just absolutely loved the feeling of just spinning around the pole, being upside down. But what I really loved is just connecting with like-minded people. So the group of friends that I have still 16 years later, we're all still really close today. And I just love the environment, the space that they sort of provided, that it was just this sort of safe space and you felt accepted no matter who you were just accepted into this beautiful space and you got to dance, and it was just this special experience.
So what was your background before? Like, what did you do for a living before pole?
So for a living, I actually worked in corporate. So I worked in corporate for about 14 years, and I worked in a big American finance company, and then I moved into a travel insurance company. And I learned so much. It's absolutely bucketing down here. I learned so much through my time there, and when I started pole, I did it for about 4 years myself as a student. And I remember just in the last year, I kept going into the studio and I couldn't get the idea out of my mind that I just wanted to start my own studio, and the impact that it made on my life. I wanted to do that for others. And it just became this obsession and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And my partner at the time, we sort of sat down and we wrote a bit of a business plan, and we're like, let's do this, and if all else fails, we tried. So we started the studio 12 years ago, and I actually kept my corporate job for the first year of running the studio. So I worked in North Sydney. The studio was in Camperdown, so I would literally race over to the studio every single evening. And it was a tough year. It was a really tough year. And it sort of got towards the end of that first year, and I thought, I can't sustain doing both. It was just too much. So I took the plunge, and as soon as I left my corporate job, things just started to work so much better. Sales started going up. I just could have my full attention on the studio. So yeah, corporate life before pole dancing.
Amazing. And do you think that some of those skills were transferable over to being a business owner and having a studio? Do you think some of the things that you would have become second nature in your normal job helped along with sort of becoming a studio owner?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, corporate and running your own business is very different, but there are so many skills that I learned from working in corporate. Around process improvement, like how are we doing things? Does this make sense? Let's improve that process. Let's make this simple. So I think definitely learn a lot, and definitely a lot of transferable skills over to running a studio.
And so from a distance, when Sydney Pole sort of first, I feel like it exploded onto the scene. I feel like you were just really suddenly there, and you were huge. You were just bulldozing everyone. So I guess my question is, how did you define that brand and find a brand identity? Was it something that you put a lot of thought in and careful thought into and preparation? And then from having that idea, how did you then implement it? And I guess what were your most successful marketing strategies at the beginning?
Definitely running free trial classes. And I know early days it was a little bit sort of controversial about running the trial classes for free. But to be honest, that really launched us. Just getting people in for free to start with. We sort of saw that as a marketing budget, really. And of course, you're going to get people who have no interest in signing up, but the amount of people we got through running free trials, we just sort of got so many signups from that. So we continue to do them today, and you sort of get the good with the bad, but it's still absolutely worth running them. And just sort of constantly looking at how we're marketing to all kinds of people, the types of ads that we put together. We have an amazing staff member who puts all of our content together, puts all of the videos together. So yeah, just constantly never resting on your laurels also. Like what worked a few years ago isn't necessarily going to work today. So constantly just challenging the status quo, thinking differently, and sort of keep thinking about how we can do things better.
Yeah, trying to be one step ahead of the curve, and also do all the studio stuff, which I find quite challenging.
Yes, it is. Wearing many hats.
Can you take us maybe back to the very beginning of Sydney Pole when you decided, were you at Misfit when you decided that you wanted to open your own studio?
Yes. Yeah.
And then how did that all come about when you did open it?
Yeah. So initially, one of my friends was actually dancing at Jamila's studio on Parramatta Road. And I remember I was telling her at the time, I really want to open my own studio. And she's like, actually, Jamila is thinking about moving to the US. Maybe you should talk to her and you could sort of, do something together here. So for the first year, we started it as Jamila DeVille Pole Studio. But then she sort of moved to the US, and then it just didn't make sense for us to run it together anymore. And that's when we were like, okay, well, what should we call ourselves? And to be honest, we were like, let's just make it really, really simple. What are people going to search for? We're like, Sydney Pole, like pole dancing Sydney. Like, let's just make it so logical that it's just easy to find. So that's how Sydney Pole came about.
Yeah, that's very smart, actually, because you do. It's Sydney Pole is what you're searching for. Yeah. And then you come up first. So that was a very smart marketing idea. I actually went and I did some lessons with Jamila back in the day when I very first started, which was like 16 years ago now. So I went to that studio and it was a tiny studio with big fat poles. I remember it very well.
Oh, yeah, she loves her big fat pole.
And I think they were like 50 statics.
Yeah, they were awful. So it was just such a small studio. So where did you go from that small studio? Obviously, because we know you're huge now, but what were the steps to get to where you have?
Yeah, so we stayed on Parramatta Road and we literally didn't move very far. So we found a bigger space and we had 2 rooms. Initially, we just had one pole room and one room just for cross-training with, scope to build another pole room at some point. So we did that pretty quickly because we're like, okay, we definitely need a second pole room. And then over time, the space that we were in, there was a church at the back of where we were and they sort of moved out. So then we're like, okay, we need more space. And then we had 4 pole rooms. And then I remember I was overseas and one of my managers rang and she's like, the West Connects project, they're actually knocking down our space. So we were there, we were there for about, maybe 4 or 5 years. And we were like, okay, so within sort of that year, we're like, okay, well, let's find another space. And year on year, we were doubling like in size each year. So we're like, we actually need more space. And we found a space just opposite where we were. And we were like, it's huge. It's like 2,000 square meters. But at the time, we also had our head office upstairs, pole rooms downstairs, conditioning rooms upstairs. And because of the growth and the trajectory that we were on, we didn't plan on COVID. So then it was like grow, bang, like we all experience, right? Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun time.
Oh, that was a pretty hard time for all, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's huge though. So you went from a smaller space with, like, I guess this is coming from a business owner type of point of view, a lot less rent, to this gigantic space that you need to fill. You need to get all these students in there and you need to pay all of your instructors and all of this rent and everything that goes along with it. Like, how did you feel confident to go into a space that was 2,000 square meters? Because I don't think people realize how big that actually is. Most pole studios, I think, in the country are approximately around 100 square meters.
Yeah. And I think because we were sort of doubling year on year, we had 4 poll rooms, and we got to 4 forums and we were at max. Like, we were like, we need more space. So I think just looking at the past few years, we were like, you know what, let's do this. And yeah, we sort of took the plunge, and we were continuing along sort of that same trend. But then, yeah, COVID came along and then changed everything. So yeah, but I think it's now I think the way the economy was last year, and sort of still is a little bit, a lot of people are pulling back on spend. So it was definitely a harder year. I don't know if you guys felt that in your states.
Yeah, we're the same. I am in WA.
Yeah, I think things are sort of turning around now, which is good, but people definitely pull back on spend because they're like, we can't afford to pay rent or we can't afford to eat.
Yeah.
So, and Sydney's an expensive place to
We
live.
have, sort of a double whammy, because I think right after COVID, everyone was just like super excited to get out and was spending all of their money. And so that was a great year. And then like you say, this past year has been a little bit more conservative. And we also have the housing crisis here. I don't know how you guys are going, but we don't have anywhere to live. So I think people are like, a lot of people have like got bigger problems than coming to a pole dancing class. So hopefully that changes.
Yeah, I think it did. We have 8 studios, so we have 6 in New South Wales and 2 in Sydney. So I think initially when we started, my plan was never really to sort of, get more and more studios, I think initially, but then over time, I think we were 4 years in and we had an owner from a Penrith studio who obviously just emailed some studios saying, hey, look, I'm wanting to sort of move on and I've been running it for 10 years. And I said to my partner at the time, I was like, oh, maybe we should go have a chat. Like, we should consider this. And then it kind of just snowballed from there. Parramatta quickly happened thereafter. Susie Q's old studio, and Lux, and I think a couple of people also owned it. So yeah,
I looked at that one too, actually.
Pardon?
I did look at the Parramatta. I did look at the Parramatta one too,
you
actually.
did?
Susie's. Yeah. Charlie rang me. She said, come down and see it. And I came down and saw it. And at the time for me, I had only had Canberra, and it was just like, and I had small children, and I was just like, I just can't do it. But I think that was actually a very good studio, yeah?
It's a great studio. Because of where it is, it's sort of in North Parramatta. It's in a little cul-de-sac. The rent is pretty cheap, so it's a good studio. It's a good location. Sorry.
I'm in Melbourne now.
Amazing. So that's like, just like opportunities just sort of cropped up, and like acquiring other studios that were already pole dancing studios, and then having them under your umbrella and rebranding them as Sydney Pole.
Yes.
Amazing.
Putting our marketing behind it, and spreading the Sydney Pole love.
The imagery of Sydney Pole as well, I think, was something that really stood out from other pole dancing studios before. Is that something that you conceptualized, that you had the idea for, or is it just something that organically sort of happened?
Just the look and feel? Or?
The look and feel, yeah.
I think I've always been really obsessed with lighting and the details of things, and just how we can make it just look aesthetically pleasing, and just for videos as well. People are filming themselves inside the pole rooms. How can we make the lighting look good in videos, and just to make it an awesome experience for people to dance in?
Yeah. So very, very like customer orientated and having a great experience. And I think being a pole dancer yourself, you like those things are important. Making a video where I feel good, where I look good. I think for me as well, it's free. It's free marketing. It's free advertisement when people like show my beautiful studio to people on their social media. So yeah, but I think you will like. I'm under the impression that you were one of the first to really do that in Australia, to really have these very beautiful videos come out of your studio.
We try. Yeah.
Well, it worked.
Yeah. It's just the devil is in the detail, right? Like, it's just everything. Like, you just want to feel nice in a space and look good. You don't want, like, I hate fluoro lights. I want to dance under fluoro lights.
I don't have any. I took them all out. I mean, I have so many. I have so many.
They're gone.
Yeah. And I've taken so many out and put them all in the same storage place. So yeah, so I can put them back if need be when we move out. But yeah, fluoro is yucky.
No need for
No
them.
need for that. I think we did briefly touch on COVID as being sort of a challenge for all businesses. But were there any challenges that you faced because you moved from sort of strength to strength to strength? Was there anything other than COVID, I guess, that was a challenge that you overcame?
Oh, I think there's so many challenges that we've overcome, probably just, wrong systems that we've put in or just mistakes that we've made along the way. Like we've made so many mistakes along the way, but if you're not failing or you're not making mistakes along the way, then you're not growing and learning. I think, COVID was definitely the hardest one, and probably even last year as well, just, the economic climate. We're like, all right, well, we need to do things differently, maybe start offering some things that we don't usually offer, using our database differently, thinking about the ads we do. So yeah, there's definitely been a lot of tough times over the years. And, I think if running a business was easy, then everyone would do it. So it definitely is challenging at times.
What did you do differently last year? Because I think last year was really hard for all of us.
Yes.
I think the cost of living it was just insane, and the interest rates going up. And I think that affected every single person. So what did you do differently? Like, how did you pivot?
So mainly we offer memberships, but we also do class packs as well. But I would say 80% of our customers are on memberships. So I think we had to do deals that we just hadn't never done. So like cheaper deals just to sort of get people in the door. I mean, obviously we still offered our free trials. Just sort of, have flyers in letterboxes, the old school sort of marketing as well. So not just relying on digital. But yeah, definitely having to sort of discount things more than we've ever done, because we've never really done that. But this year we're like, we just need to get people in the door to sort of keep things going. So yeah, it was definitely
make up in numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, I think it did. And also I think in sort of like a recessionary environment, whether or not they're calling it a recession, I feel like it forces you to look at things that you're doing, processes, where you're spending your money. So I guess we were trying to grow our sales, but we also looked at all of our overheads, our running costs. We have a ton of staff on the team, a lot of systems that we use. So we have this sort of motto this year, and we had a strategy day with the team the other day, and we call it MSE, make shit easy. If it's hard, we're not doing it. Let's see how we can streamline this. Does it make sense? We just want to make things easy. And I think some of the things we did, we were just overcomplicating things which didn't need to be. So I feel like it forced us to look at all of our processes and everything we were doing when we probably should have been doing that anyway, but we were just forced because of the environment that we were in.
How many staff do you have?
So instructors, we have about 100. And full-time staff, so we have managers for the location. So full-time staff, we have about 10. And then we have front of house staff at all of our locations as well. So all in all, probably a good 150.
That's a lot of staff.
Yeah, but we've got 8 studios.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have to cut back any staff because of the changes?
We did. So, but it was kind of fortunate in some ways because some of those staff were kind of moving back overseas or doing something else. So it was fortunate that it kind of all panned out and it worked out well for itself. So yeah, we just sort of stripped a lot of costs and focusing on growth as well.
Okay, so you're going to keep growing?
No more studios at this point.
That's what I say all the time, and then next minute, I opened 2 last year. I don't know what I was thinking.
People keep reaching out. They're like, do you want to buy my studio? I'm like, no.
No, I know.
I don't want to buy anymore.
I think you're the same. Yeah, I think we're the same. I get people all the time asking me to buy their studios. I'm like, I'm out. I've tapped out. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had our 2 Queensland studios. Our manager, Maz, she's incredible. She's been with us for 6 years now. So she's sort of really running those 2 studios. And then we've got some incredible people in our New South Wales locations as well. So I think getting the right people and the right jobs is everything, and they can definitely make your life easier. But yeah, no studios for now.
No more.
I need to sleep.
I know. Just focus on what we have.
So
yeah, I'm grateful.
Moving forward from here, where do you see sort of like growth opportunities? Would you move Sydney Pole like more online, or what would your next steps from here be?
So we did start City Pole online last year. Chloe Uchida works for us. So she's about to go on a 5-month Asia tour, but she sort of helped us really build our entire curriculum online and just having different offerings on our online platform as well. So that is something we did last year and we'll continue to invest and sort of develop.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's smart. I'm looking into it as well because I feel like as a dancer myself, my body's only going to last so long. But I think if we do digitalize, there's just so much that we can keep and have evergreen for use in the future when bodies don't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was I gonna? I was gonna ask something
And
else.
I think just on that as well, nothing will ever replace the in-person class experience.
Agreed.
The connection, as humans, we're made to connect. Nothing will ever replace that. I think this is just an add-on to people's learning, and they're gonna, go away and watch something, or maybe do some things from home. But nothing will ever beat that in-person experience.
I agree. It's very similar to nothing ever being the same as live theatre. Like seeing someone dance live or perform live is never ever going to be the same as video. So I don't see it as a replacement at all. But equally, I feel like your reach is so much greater. There's so many people that you'll never be able to physically go and see, but if they can access you via the internet, then it just opens up so many more doors and so many more people that you can reach. But yeah, I agree. It's a nothing on the real thing, but also a very helpful tool.
Yeah, a good second offering.
Yeah.
One question I do want to know, and this has come to me, I guess, since moving to Melbourne. I literally have, I could have up to 5 people a week reach out to me and ask me if they can instruct with me. And I've got a very specific program for my instructors, and I choose them a very specific way. I won't just take anyone off the street. So, but I know it's a really big question out there in the pole world. How do you choose your instructors?
So Chloe Uchida, so she's in charge of hiring our instructors. So we have a process, like they can apply, and then if they're successful, she'll take them on a journey and sort of getting them on board. So it's a pretty stringent recruitment process. Again, we can't just take on anyone just because they feel like they want to become an instructor. Just because you're a good pole dancer doesn't mean you're going to be a good instructor. So
my daughter's to me, I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear that constant beeping. I don't know how to turn it off.
Mom, pick up the phone.
It's literally like that. And this girl's on, she actually worked for you, Robyn. I told you that she did a little bit of work for you when she moved to Sydney. She was
she's still
she was teaching. Yeah, she's in Sydney. She's in Sydney doing she's doing uni, so she's Sydney University, but she's was teaching, I think she was teaching aerials for you when you had the aerial hammock. I'm not sure if you still do that. Yeah. Nice. So anyway, my child worked for you.
She's great.
Yeah, she's great. Thanks. Gordon's constantly texting me now. So Chloe does all the hiring and apply through like an online form, is it?
Yeah, so we have like a careers@sydneypole.com email address, so they can send their CV in, and then, if they're appropriate or they have some sort of, level of experience, or they're keen to go through the program to learn how to teach, then Chloe will interview them first and see if they are the right fit for Sydney Pole. And then if they are, then she'll go through the process of, they'll have to shadow for a period of time. She'll spend a lot of time with them and, get them on board as instructors.
So what sort of period of time would they shadow for if they're new? How does that work?
So they'll probably shadow for at least for a term. So at least for sort of 10 weeks. And then again, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you are going to become an instructor. It's just part of the process. And then we also have master instructors as well. So they go through a process. So it's not just Chloe. So if we have a master instructor for, let's say, Camperdown, they'll shadow with that person, and then that person will give Chloe feedback and the person feedback, and then go through a bit of a checklist of things that they need to sort of go through. So yeah, at least a term.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do too. How do you feel about somebody coming in with, say, these courses that are out there now, these pole courses? Does that sway you in any way? I know for me it doesn't, because I think that everyone teaches real differently and we've got our own teaching style. So if somebody does come into me and say, oh, I've done this course at wherever, I'm like, okay, that's great, but you now need to be an Aaron Paul Academy person. Is that similar for you?
I totally agree with you. I think it's still need to come in and go through our process as well, because we probably might do things really differently from someone else. So appreciate that they've gone through some sort of training, which is great, but they'd still need to go through the process with us to become a Sydney pole instructor.
As employees and as teachers and as studio owners that have a very specific style and vision for our studios, we don't actually know what's taught on that course. So it may or may not apply. And that's lovely, a great thing to have for you. And it may have progressed you as a teacher, but it doesn't necessarily apply to the employer that you're handing it to. So I think that maybe a good thing for people looking into doing those sorts of courses is look at it as a tool to progress yourself personally, but it might not help you, get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree.
One other question that I wanted to ask is, what does your day-to-day look like? Because you do have 8 studios and they're real big studios, they're not small, and you have an incredible amount of staff. I think you would have to obviously, I don't know, be one of the biggest. Maybe you and Christy would have the 2 most amounts of staff, because I think she's got 19 studios. So,
19.
but franchises, which is a little different, as we all know, to like running them yourself, because you've got that person who owns it and they've got that responsibility for it. But still, obviously, a very big thing. So, what's your regular day-to-day look like?
Yeah. So it could look so different depending on what day we're in, what week, where we are in the term. But generally, sort of, first thing I do is look at sales every morning. Okay, where do we sit? Look at how ads are performing, connecting with all of my team. My business partner, Mark, will often get together most days and just sort of talk about, what are our top priorities? Where do we need to be spending our time? Changing our ads. Are they working? Are they not working? Just so it's so funny. I think some people are like, oh, wow. So like, what do you do in the day? Like classes are at night, but like, what do you do in the day?
What do you mean? I just rest. Just chill.
Yeah, just chill.
I wish there was more like hours in the day and night to get stuff done, because I feel like it goes so fast. Is there any particular time of year that you're busier or not busier? Like, are the lulls significant?
I mean, I think probably like most of us, summer, New Year is always sort of a busier time. More people are signing up. Winter gets a little bit quieter. And then sort of coming back into spring, it starts to sort of go up a little bit. People are out of hibernation. So I think definitely seasonality. European summer is a thing. So a lot of people sort of tend to go overseas halfway through the year. So, yeah.
Do you see the big difference between Brisbane and New South Wales, Sydney? Is there big differences between the studios there?
In terms of
how many people you have, like, I guess the trends that are going, because I know each state has like really different trends. When I moved from Canberra, even though I've got still a lot of studios in Canberra, to Melbourne, the trends here are really different, like for what people are wanting. For example, like they might like the sexy style at one point, but I'm finding in Melbourne, for example, it's hugely like dynamic pole. Everyone's like doing all these crazy flips and all that sort of stuff. So you've got to have the instructors to be able to teach that. So are you finding different trends in different states and different amounts of people in different states?
I think there's slightly different trends at each location, even within Sydney. So like Camperdown, for example, like sort of exotic / sexy style is a big thing at Camperdown. We've got instructors like Blue Phoenix, Lorna Shadow, Chloe, like just to name a few. So I think depending on the style of the instructor, sort of it depends on the location. Our Gladesville studio loves their sexy style dancing. Penrith, maybe not as much. So I feel like, depending on the location, it can be a bit of a different vibe.
And what about Queensland?
Queensland, I feel like I love going to Queensland. Every time I go there, the pace of Sydney is so fast, and I always go to Queensland and I'm like, everybody's just so lovely here. Like everyone's a lot more chilled and just like super supportive of one another. It's just such a family feel to both those studios there in Capalaba and Brisbane. So I think they're like a bit of a mix. A bit of a mix.
Amazing.
And that's a wrap for part 1 of our chat with Sydney Pole owner Robyn. If you'd like to follow Sydney Pole, you can find them on Instagram at Sydney_Pole. You can find Felix on Instagram at The Real Felix Kane. And you can find Elizabeth on Instagram at Ariel Pole. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week for part 2.